Hello everyone, my name is Teague, and welcome to How to Create Kubernetes Experts. All right, first off, by show of hands, how many of you already consider yourselves Kubernetes experts? All right, cool. Well, I guess we're at the right place, huh? Second, how many of you are on your way to becoming Kubernetes experts? All right, quite a few more. All right, let me see why you are here. Okay. And last one, how many of you are looking for Kubernetes expertise in your company but are having a hard time doing so? Okay, and that's what I figured. All right, first off, a little bit about us. My name's Teague. I am a software engineer at Supergiant. I started off a little over a year ago doing technical support and then moving on to actually being a software engineer and being able to do cool talks like this. And before that, I was doing technical support at a company that is no longer open. And before that, I was doing Taco Bell, which, by the way, not authentic Mexican by any means. And this here is Clarke.
Hey everybody, my name is Clarke. I am the primary training author at Supergiant University. And just like Aaron, I started out not anywhere close to containers or Kubernetes, but over time, it's been a year or two now, and we both are certified. I've got my certified application developer certificate, my administrator certificate. Our company is a Kubernetes training partner now, and that's what I do every day. So we've both felt the pain of being new to Kubernetes, and we've certainly felt the pain of not being able to find people to help us with our vision for Kubernetes too. So that's what we're here to help you with today.
Cool, and we are both now able to work on some big projects. Like I've changed out storage backend and upgraded Kubernetes from 1.5 to 1.13 on some of our own clusters, which by the way is about a 2-year difference in commits, all without customer downtime. And this here, he's able to make Kubernetes training. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. So who is Supergiant? We do support, consultation, training for Kubernetes and its users. We have an office in Europe and one in the United States. And we are a KCSP, a Kubernetes certified service provider and a Kubernetes training partner. And between our two offices, 63% of our total staff is certified in Kubernetes, either using a CKA or CKAD as the metric. And we hope to extend that percentage even further this year. So this talk is mostly targeted to those that are looking to get Kubernetes expertise in your company. But why is that even a good option in the first place?
All right, so Kubernetes really is kind of like a kraken, right? There's all of these different aspects of computing that it touches. Infrastructure and storage and networking and services, things like that. It has its own way of abstracting things. So the way that you tackle this kraken in your company is different everywhere across the board. People have different platforms they use. There's a massive ecosystem of open source tools that people use with Kubernetes. People use it with other things like Mesosphere. They use it with VMs. It's going to look so different at every company. And so part of our argument today is that when we have pulled people into our company who are pre-qualified experts, it takes just as much time to pull out the old roots, plant new ones, and get people up to speed with your Kraken fighting style. And so we thought, why not just hire people who are entry level, who are newbies, you know, off the street essentially, and then raise them up with our style of Kraken fighting. So in addition to that, you have more room to grow and make mistakes. So let's say you've got an expert who costs you this much. You need to make a return on that investment. So the return needs to be that much. It needs to be that high. When you're starting with somebody who's entry level and you're growing them incrementally, in the beginning, you've got an investment that's right here. And so the bar is not as high to get the return. You're losing less money over time, and you have the opportunity to invest in people and see them grow without as high of a risk. And so you can afford to roll the dice on 3 or 4 entry-level people rather than trying to go all out for an all-star developer or something like that. Another thing that is also important is there are also benefits, right? So when you're investing in people, employees feel like they're getting invested into, and they get to see themselves grow, and as they grow, they get to take on more and more challenges, and they see the skills that they're getting because of you at your company and because of their determination and passion. They're seeing those skills impact the company more and more over time. And companies and employees that bond together stay together, right? But it's not just that. When you have a culture of learning and growth, the employees are growing together too. And employees who grow together stay together. So you provide more bonding. by giving people opportunities. In addition to that, just one more thing, it's also just a really awesome thing to do for the community. So when the bar you're looking for hiring people is this high, there's not a lot of people who can reach that. But when you open up the door for entry-level people, you're providing opportunities for people that would have never been able to get into this tech industry. So me, for example, I applied for jobs literally all around the world when I got out of college. I studied so hard. I couldn't find a job anywhere. I was doing housekeeping just to have a place to stay. They would let me stay there when I would clean. And I got one interview. Everywhere in the entire world, I got one interview. Can you guess what company that was at? So this provides passion in people. It makes them passionate about having that opportunity. And you'll be really amazed at how people that actually have good character traits can grow. They'll amaze you with what they can do. And we'll tell you about what traits to look for in people when you're looking to hire people at that entry level. Okay, so creating experts is awesome, but isn't that like a really impossible thing to do?
Nope. In fact, we've gotten ours for $40,000 to $60,000 a year. And the secret ingredient is training our own. So most people want to start off just getting that Kubernetes rockstar right ahead, but don't really think about just trying to train them up from the beginning. So with the correct hiring and filtering and the mentoring and community-driven aspects in your company, you can actually get someone off the streets and hire them in and make them Kubernetes experts. And we know this because we've been there. Clarke and myself have gotten our CKs at about half a year's mark, right? I think mine was 7, yours was 4.
Something like that.
Yeah. So why do it in-house? Why not just go get that expert just outright? Well, let's go through the big picture. So a lot of companies have a lot of roles involved, or a lot of a lot of positions, a lot of roles that fill up those teams as a whole. For instance, ours, we host Elasticsearch support, host Elasticsearch development, Kubernetes training, Kubernetes support, marketing and sales, and many others. But each role has its own functions to fulfill out the needs as a whole. But one thing that a lot of companies do is they hire someone in as a strict role, saying you are marketing, and that's what you're going to do, marketing, and that is it. But if you have a project that involves Kubernetes and that marketing gentleman is interested in exploring that territory, throw them a task. If you let people follow their interests rather than just a strict boundary on what their job title is, you'd be amazed at what you could make out of that. So we need to figure out our point A and our point B, our entry point and our destination. And the idea is to get people from role to role, filling out each individual need on each of those roles. So we might bring someone in as a support tech and have them answer customer tickets, and after a while, after they get good at it, give them some projects to work on and move them up the rings, and eventually get them to an expert status over time.
All right, so how do you actually go through this process? That's kind of the big picture of what we're going to walk you through. So we're just going to walk you through this quest step by step. So step 1 is you need to define your destination. So this is the entry point at which you would say, like, when an employee enters this gate, you have your Kubernetes expertise, you're fulfilling the need that you have in your company. So you need to have a good grasp on what your company's goals are. What is the vision for your company? How does Kubernetes interact with that? Like, how are you using Kubernetes to achieve the goals that you have at your company? So don't be afraid, talk to people. If you're a smaller company, getting more and more communication, you probably apply the agile methodology. Like, have some seeds that are sown between teams and talk to each other to figure out where your most pressing needs are so that you can continue to get a return on your investment at your company and you can continue to grow more and more and more. So you can ask questions like, what are the tools we use in the Kubernetes ecosystem? How do we use them? What are we struggling with? What are the boundaries to achieving our vision? You can also, your needs might be like, hey, we want to become a certified Kubernetes service provider. So your destination really is just a function of planting a flag. This is where we need Kubernetes expertise. So you can have multiple things going on. Maybe you just need talented people on a specific team, and maybe they don't need to fulfill a specific role. So to give you an example, like we personally, we do support, we do training. If we can have somebody in any role on those teams, as long as they're actively contributing in a meaningful way to achieving our goal there, then that's kind of where our point B flag is. And that's like, here it is, here's our destination. So that is like your destination. And then another important thing here is this has to be a worthy achievement, right? Maybe it's a more prestigious position, maybe people get to go on trips, like we get to go on trips. Maybe people get a higher salary in that position and they feel special. It's kind of like if you're playing an RPG, it's like that ultimate class that you're grinding experience towards, right? And in addition, this might kind of change over time. So the approach we're going to show you is taking it one step at a time. One role, graduating to one role, graduating to another, to graduated responsibility, because you're going to find your needs may change and how they're getting met may change over time too. So as long as you're fulfilling your needs, getting a return on your investment, you're not losing money, you're walking closer to your vision, so that's kind of a good thing.
Cool. Let's move on to step 2. We already know the destination. We want that Kubernetes expert, either it be developer, administrator, trainer, something similar, but we need to figure out that point A. And that could vary from company to company. It might be something support related, something junior dev related, but it needs to have something to do loosely with Kubernetes so that we could get them in the right direction early on. And our example is junior hosted Elasticsearch support, where people just come in, they start answering tickets, they figure out things about Elasticsearch and how it operates, address downtimes, find bug fixes, etc. And then we try to get them through that process through execution. So for each new role, it requires a new skill involved to achieve it. And this might come in at the beginning or might come in through mostly in the means of on-the-job training, on-the-job learning, or even off-time learning or documentation. So next, we need to actually get that job posting out there so we could get that person brought in. So after you have the skills you need listed out, put them into a job posting. Say, hey, we are looking for someone with X, Y, and Z to fulfill this role. And if you're not really sure how to do the job posting thing, just find other job postings that are similar to yours and kind of emulate that. Don't straight up copy though, just that's not a good thing to do. And then step 3 is to actually hire someone. There's a few key ingredients to look for when doing this. One being passion, because if someone doesn't have that incentive to grow, they will not. And next is to look for determination. So there's going to be some challenges that will come across and hardships that they will encounter. And if they don't have that grit and determination to move past those obstacles, then they will not. They cannot grow. And then last is to find someone with humility. So we all know that know-it-all that at least seems to know everything. So if they already believe that they know everything there is to know, then they are not going to grow because they believe that they already have. So we in the past have actually gotten burned in a few cases where we hired the rock star right ahead for a very expensive price, and it didn't turn out too well. Like they knew what they were doing, but they didn't really push very far. And as it turns out, for the price of one rock star, you can actually find 3 entry level and take the gamble on it. There's this movie that my CEO watched called Moneyball, where it's talking about a story about someone playing the odds because they couldn't really get the rock star team that they wanted, but they played some odds and hired some diamonds in the rough and were able to get a fantastic team going on by the end of the movie. And that's kind of what we opted to try instead. And it actually turned out really well for us.
Yeah, so if it's going to cost you, this much money to get a shining star, and for that much you can get 3 diamonds in the rough that can perform just as well, why not gamble? You're going to get people in your area, first of all, instead of having to do remote work, which can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to do. And then also, it's just a really awesome experience.
So finding the skills that you are looking for in your position, like that you're opening for, is good, but by no means outweighs actually the passion, the grit, the determination. Because as it turns out, we're going to reference video games a lot because we like video games too, is that oftentimes a good buff or a skill multiplier is better than an initial stat sheet in the long run. And that's what you should be hiring for, is the long run. So, how do you look for the passion? How do you find people that would fill out your role well? Well, you go for the normal colleagues, LinkedIn, GitHub, check word of mouth, or you could check the individual's portfolio, see if it's updated and if they're proud of it. If it looks like they are updating their skills regularly, but by the end, don't look for the actual skills that they have, but their ability to grow. Look for someone that is interested in technology, but has the embrace to push further for it. And lastly, be transparent. Let them know from the get-go whenever you're hiring in that you are looking for someone to go from point A to point B. You're hiring in for an entry-level position, but you are trying to promote for a Kubernetes expert, because you don't want them to come in on the first day and someone breathing down their neck saying, hey, when are you going to get that CKA again? Whenever you didn't actually mention that that's their, we're going to try to go for. And also, if you're trying to go fast and get Kubernetes expertise quickly, you might want to consult on that one, because while it might be more expensive up front, it is often cheaper than hiring and hoping that you get that rock star in the end.
Yeah, so those are the things you might look for when you're hiring somebody, and you can see, like, good example, some hobbies require a lot of dedication, a lot of learning, a lot of change, and those can be helpful. So for example, I studied full-time in my free time. I loved learning and studying, and that was like a flag to my boss. This guy maybe will be passionate. Aaron's really passionate about Arduino and Raspberry Pis. He's a tinkerer, he's a maker. That takes dedication and time. It takes investment, it takes passion. So those are things that say to us, this person's actually gonna enjoy what they do, they're gonna take off, and they're gonna do well. So when you finally have somebody, the next step is just start your quest. Embark on this journey to raise this person up to an expert. And the first thing that you need to do is just get them started in that initial role. Whatever that initial role was, that's where they're going to start, get them onboarded there. And this is the perfect period for you. You're not investing a ton of money. You're not losing a lot of money. If things don't work out, that's okay. Remember, you can hire like 3 people instead of one super extremely expensive person, and then you can find people that are really passionate. So I kind of like to look at it like a rainbow, like a skill rainbow. So the idea here is each of these roles in your company that you're wanting to graduate people through, they have associated skills required to master them. Those skills, when they have the full spectrum, can illuminate, their knowledge, and they can tackle unknown frontiers and problems and provide for you value that you wouldn't have necessarily expected or have thought that people could do for you earlier, And once you get somebody mastered up in that role, then you move them on to the next. You're going to repeat this process. So how do you do that? How do you get somebody from, half a rainbow to a full rainbow to a double rainbow to a triple rainbow, so on and so forth? We like to think of it kind of as side quests. So you want to give people opportunities to grind experience, grow their skills, and this can take several different forms. So these are things like projects someone that can take on that push their skills a little bit. It could be finishing a training course, like, hey, go take this course with Docker, and then when you finish that, you've got more experience with that. It could be participating in certain tasks on certain teams, like, hey, this team has a need, why don't you go over there? That sounds like a good place for you to learn something, and then do some stuff there. So this is a very involved kind of agile process where your people are growing actively, right? And then the key here too for good side quests is the skills where someone's at, find something that kind of tailors to those particular needs. So maybe a trainee can code. Maybe their role requires them to learn Docker. Have them containerize an app, something like this. So this is kind of like a culture that you can build in your company. And along the way, you're gonna find topics that people don't understand, trainees don't understand them. So be active, be active. I can't stress that enough. You're not gonna find out that somebody doesn't know how to do something until it's too late and the project is due and they're like, I don't have anything, right? If you don't measure anything, people aren't gonna, they're not gonna let you know. You're not gonna find out. So give people supplementary materials too. Give people time to go learn and invest in those skills. So there needs to be time for people to go take a course. That's what we do at our company. Learn something, come back, and then kind of supercharge the project that they're working on. And then when they learn, give them opportunities to apply it, right? Everybody here has in their company, 1,000 different things in the backlog that they just can't get to because they don't have enough hands and they don't have enough time. So take one of those that might be a good fit and have somebody do it. It may be small, but it means something and it's important and it gives people a sense of meaning. And then, like we said, mentor people, be active, be engaged. Take people to lunch and talk to them, ask them how things are going. And then another important thing here, this is what we do at our company, is we have these milestones. You give people this thing to strive for, and then when they get there, there's a reward, right? So, for example, a milestone could be finally moving on to the next role, graduating from taking tickets next to a more senior engineer to being on call and getting calls in the middle of the night. It could be getting their CKA certification or CKAD certification. It could be something that means something. So when you get there, so what we do is when someone gets their CKA certification, you get a small monthly bonus, and that gives them an incentive to strive for that. You move to the next role, you get a small change in title. Now I'm no longer junior, I'm just support tech, that means something special. And then a really important key here too is they should be relatively frequent. So we're not talking about the ever elusive promotion that people are striving for at giant companies that they never see. Milestones should be maybe about 3 months in distance from each other and maybe no more than 6 months. They should be achievable within 6 months. So they should be challenging, not easy, but they should be achievable within that time. Like getting our CK8, for example, we take people who just have basic programming experience, we're involved in the mentoring process, and then within 6 months, they're a certified Kubernetes administrator. And then eventually, as you go through this process, your new hire is not going to be new anymore, right? They're going to be a Kubernetes expert, and they're going to master their current role. They're going to move on to the next one. Maybe they move from supporting your application in development to supporting it in production or developing that actual application. And how do you know when somebody's ready? So like we said, the key here is involvement. Ask people questions, have conversations. Do they understand it? Did any problems happen during their last milestone? What can we do to help them understand those issues? And if things just aren't panning out, then maybe they'll just stay in that position. As long as they're achieving a return on investment, let's try to continue to grow people. So this is kind of what you're going to be looking for. This is kind of the ultimate achievement throughout this process. So when we say Kubernetes expert, we're not talking about a cool, flattering title yeah, I do stuff with Kubernetes and I'm really good at it. Expertise to us is it's a specific type of skill. So to illustrate this, let me give you an example. So let's take a load balancer. If you have a lot of experience with load balancers, you can fix a load balancer because you've done it 30 times, you have documentation on it in your company. But then the idea behind expertise is maybe it's the first time you've seen it, but you understand networking, you understand the infrastructure, you understand the pieces of the beast that are connected to make this work, and you can fix it. It's that full rainbow that illuminates these unknown frontiers, right? And that's the difference between level 1 and level 2 support at our company. So level 2 doesn't have special access to forbidden documentation in some underground vault or something like that. They thoroughly understand the technology enough to push the frontier. Okay. So how do you know when it's time to move someone up to a role? We recommend that you have a good handle on your return on investment, right? So if you're a smaller company, this is something we want you to think about. What are the financials for this role? And this is kind of for financially minded people. Is it a certain number of support tickets where if we sustain these support tickets, then these customers aren't going to leave us? That constitutes a certain amount of revenue where we can sustain a salary. And you can kind of figure out a good method for you. So for smaller companies, that's really important that you figure out what that is so that you can get from being a small company to grow and grow and grow. And when you promote is also another important question. That's kind of, I'll leave that up to you to think about. I just want you to think about the long-term ramifications of when you choose to promote. Because when you choose to promote people before they achieve the role that you want them to go to, then the burden's on the company to raise up the trainee. And then if you promote before they achieve that role that you're aiming for, then or after, like a meritocratic sort of like they're able to do this, so we just award them the title they already have, sort of thing. You know, the burden falls on the trainee to put out extra effort to get there. So there are different effects here, and it's going to change based on the structure of your company. It's going to change based on how you do things. So think about that, because that is important. And then reward people. You can do this, first of all, because your investment is lower, the bar is lower, you're losing less money. When you get somebody to a sustainable point, you can move people up because you're not losing a lot of money. Then also, you should do it because it creates hunger. It creates hunger for people to just continue to grow and develop. And if you never invest in people and you never reward people and fulfill the promises that you had for them, then they're just going to become like a band of mercenaries who just move from company to company, filling out these roles and finding out that 10 years later they never get to achieve that dream that they wanted to. That's important. So just to summarize this process, you start with your initial role. You get people up to speed on those skills, and you're providing these side quests that continually push people's limits. And you provide these milestones every 3 or 6 months. People are striving for a new challenge that gives them a reward. Maybe it's a monthly bonus, maybe it's a change in promotion. Maybe someone finishes a project and a top brass executive comes and says, hey, I noticed you did that, and that's really cool. You know, that really means something to people, just knowing that they're noticed too. And then promote them, repeat this cycle, and eventually you'll attain the expertise that you're looking for.
So congratulations, you went from new hire to expert, point A to point B. Well, theoretically speaking, but what do you do after that? Do it all over again. So, take notes for each time you do this. So for each and every time, you've done some things wrong, you've done some things right. Take note on how that happened, what went wrong, what went right, and turn it into a process, document into a form. And after each iteration, you'll find that the time it takes to go from newbie to expert dwindles down just a little bit each and every time. How do we do it? We got down to a bit of a science where we're at, where we go bring someone in as junior technical support for hosted Elasticsearch. That has to do with Kubernetes as well, because that's where it's hosted. And they do the basics of answering questions from customers, trying to diagnose downtimes, bug fixes, features, etc. And then after they get used to their role, we throw some projects at them from our backlog, something that has to relate to Kubernetes. Then after some projects have been acquired and they have successfully completed them, we give them some new milestones to go for. And over time, we are able to promote them up and get them into that CKA position.
All right, so just to give you just step back and give some perspective. So like in the description of our talk, you know, there's this huge ecosystem. Kubernetes is moving so fast, right? Every 3 months there's a release. Things are changing and they're growing. So we're racing against the clock to stay relevant all the time in all of our different companies. So just so that you can kind of see what this means, we've gotten this down to a scientific process where in a year, we can get somebody from an entry-level hire to actively investing as a certified Kubernetes engineer on projects that actually provide value, where people have come from doing IT at their school to cutting $30,000 off of our bill every single month, to coming straight out of college, to cutting $20,000 off our bill every single month with storage projects. So this is possible, and if you think about it, it's really incredible that you can do this in about a year's time. You can iron out this process and get to a point where you can stay relevant, and not just stay relevant, your company can thrive and grow with a team. So we've compiled kind of a list of, these are some like free resources that we kind of use for our own people, and we're actually gonna show you how to get to the slides because it's kind of hard to, we're just gonna go so fast. So please definitely check out the slides. I'll show you how you can access them. We've got all these courses. They're just free ones that people have put on the web that are super awesome. That treasure trove, if you do anything, please just go click on that because a company compiled that and there's literally hundreds of links for like all kinds of really useful stuff. There's guides, everybody knows Kelsey Hightower's stuff, creating a cluster the hard way, and miscellaneous articles, lots of miscellaneous articles. And then last but not least, this can be a difficult process if this is something you're struggling with. We're at booth G1 on the main aisle. Just follow the sparkles and you can check out Supergiant.io training. It's literally my job. My full-time job is take people from entry level, graduate them to Kubernetes experts. We've just kind of, I guess, started doing that too. But those are some free resources you can use. And then if you scan this QR code, it'll just take you directly to download the PowerPoint slides, which actually have our speaker notes in them. So you can see, because some of these we had pictures, you can see what we actually were like saying in our bullet points. That link up there, supergiant.live, will take you there. This is our contact info. And we have maybe a little bit of time. Is there anything else before we take questions?
We actually do have a few minutes, about 4 minutes. But by the way, you can find this actually uploaded on the SCED website. So if you want to check that out.
Yeah, and we'll also be outside to take questions.
Or you can just
if
type
we run
really
out of time
fast.
here, too.
Your call. So, any questions? What's up?
How do you shallow knowledge? I mean, university maths tend to have a chunk of book knowledge and not a lot of deep experience to make math use.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you said, sorry, because it was hard to hear. How do you get people from like theoretical book knowledge to the experience? Gotcha. Yeah, so the key is kind of like these side quest processes. If there's anything in your backlog that meets their skill level, to get them involved on that project. And if that's impossible, there's a lot of courses that have the hands-on things. But having a mentor be there with you and trying to get somebody to click the pieces together, there's a lot of really good educational methods like the ADEPT method. The more connections you build in someone's head, the better they'll understand it, and all of a sudden they're gonna just grow that kind of magical like expertise, if that answers.
We internally also have a bunch of our processes actually on Kubernetes. So when they go to administrate them, they actually have like a deep dive into it. So they work, or they learn by actually just doing their normal work too. Hey. Sorry, barely hear you.
So hiring a lot of juniors can put pressure on the senior engineers because you need to help mentor them. So how do you make sure that your senior developers have the time for this and they can do this next to their own job? Yeah,
so what we do is we literally, like, when we plan a sprint for somebody, we leave 30% of that sprint open for things like self-improvement and research, and then to mentor people. So we've run into problems where we try to pack our sprint full, and then we just don't have time to mentor people, and then we run into an issue later because we're out of talent, you know? So it is an investment where we have to invest time, and it's a kind of a lengthy process, but in the long run, it really pans out, and it has really worked for us. So we kind of have to like make sure that there's like a locked down time where engineers are not being pressured.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard, but at some point you will get those from junior to senior if they, if you embrace that culture and get them to stick around for a while.
Also, keep your growth tasks, take things from your backlog and assign them to your new people. Keep them attainable, like within like a month's period of time, right? So that the team can celebrate that achievement together. To the senior staff, that might be a very simple thing that they just haven't had time to get to yet. But to a new person, that would be a really challenging project that they never thought they could complete, right? Giving them that extra time and giving them a long enough month to get that to do on the sprint will help them grow. We just keep building that up. And it won't task your senior year.
Cool. I think we do one more question.
Do you also kind of going on the time that a senior engineer has to invest in a
Yeah, everybody likes money.
Do you also do something on the flip side for the person who is doing unmentionable worthy? Because they may feel like they're sacrificing their time that they're investing in that person from doing tasks that are delivering ROI that is demonstrating their value.
It's kind of like a shared experience. So we'll have like, we did a cluster upgrade, we have a little party, like, yeah, we did it. And it's kind of a function of like, the senior engineers have been there, done that, gone through that process, and they've kind of received those rewards. And then the success of the juniors is like really in huge part because of them. And so wherever we can, we just continue to try to keep the milestones for our senior engineers, you know, at the progression they're at, to just keep them going up, so that they'll continue to grow too. So it's kind of like everybody's always like continuing to do something, because at some point there is a point where like you're at the cutting edge of Kubernetes, and the milestones are less a function of being able to take on a new task as they are being able to take on a project that saves money. And then that's like a big milestone where like a senior engineer can also get like a small reward and stuff.
It's sort of like the old model where becoming a master taking on premises.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we are about out of time, so we need to let the next person set up. So we're gonna hang out near the door. If you want to ask us any more questions.
Yep, we'll be right out there if you have any questions. Cool. Thank you all.